You're listening to the Ranch Sitdown with your host, Shayne Hollinger.
Welcome into the Ranch Sitdown. Today we are joined by Fort Worth-based singer-songwriter, has a new album out called Brand New Love Potion, Wesley Hanna. Thanks for joining us today, buddy.
Hey, Shayne, thanks for having me out, man.
Man, not only a singer-songwriter, but you got a little brains on you. You're an engineer.
I guess you could say that. I did try to stay in school, man, make good grades. It was tough at times, but made it out.
So tell us what first got you involved in music, Wesley.
So I've always been a music fan my whole life and been very musical. I love to entertain. That's just part of my personality. And so ended up picking up the guitar on my 17th birthday.
Really?
And couldn't put it down. So every day I would just come home and spend a couple hours in my room. I'm sure my parents loved it. I know they loved it. They shut the door.
So were you more self-taught?
For about the first year,
watch videos, or how did you do it?
Oh, I was before the video time. You couldn't YouTube back then. I had to get songbooks out, and I did play some. I was in the band like in junior high, so I knew how to read music, and so that helped out a lot. But just picking it up and learning how to play chords, and then picking up songs. I was a big Nirvana fan in high school. Loved grunge music, so I was trying to play grunge music, but I can't sing grunge music. And always loved country music my whole life, and so I knew that was the way I was going to go. And at that time, you had guys like Pat Green and Charlie Robinson. I'd listen to and try to play their songs. Robert Earl Keen, Ragweed was coming out, so it was one of those deals like, hey, I can pick up some chords and chord sheets and learn how to play these things.
So that was kind of an exciting time for you. You were, getting into this music, and all these new cool bands were kind of coming out of the woodwork, and the scene was just starting to explode. That was like the perfect time to get involved in it.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. It was a great time. And, you had guys, when I got to college a couple years later, I remember going to Ragweed's 10th anniversary show, and they had this guy opening for him named Randy Rogers, and my friends were like, "Who's this Randy Rogers guy? We'll just show up for Ragweed." And I was like, "I'm going early. Y'all do whatever you want."
Right.
But this guy's pretty good. And then sure enough, man, didn't take long. He was blowing up.
That was the cool thing I think about this scene is there's like so many huge stars that open for other big bands. I still remember City Limits in Stephenville, Texas, The Great Divide would headline, and guys like Pat Green would open. And then the next time Pat Green came around, he sold the place out on his own, But that's always a neat thing about this scene is you guys and gals always seem to be a champion for each other and help each other out and get in front of those crowds.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. It's been very cool to watch guys like that you go see them and playing for almost an empty room one year, and then a year later they're out thanks to guys like you playing them on the radio. I mean, they're coming into town and playing a sold out show, and so that's really cool to see that.
You started playing music and then took a break. I just talked to Mike Graham to do one of these podcasts, I guess last week, and he kind of did the same thing. He started playing music and then, had a family and said, I should probably make some money first, had a career, and then got to a point in your life where you were able to kind of do both. And I feel like that's the road, obviously, that you went down, but I feel like that's a really good plan for you because you've lived life, and now you're hearing this kind of in your songwriting.
Absolutely. It's definitely something that I put a lot of thought into, coming out of school. I had a band when I was at Texas A&M, and we played around town, and we didn't know what we wanted to be when we grew up, but we had a lot of different sounds going on. But everybody graduated, and it was like, hey, what are we going to do now? And everybody had different ideas for what they wanted to do, and so it was like kind of starting over. And I was like, well, I can start over and do this thing, or hey, I might need to go make some money and maybe live a little life first so I can write about it. So ended up going out to West Texas, man, and spending some time out there, and so that was good. Did a lot of growing up, and like you said, it's showing up in my songwriting. So I'm enjoying this, getting back into it.
So when was the point where you decided you were going to come back and start, kind of focusing a little bit more on music?
It was during the pandemic, during all the lockdown stuff. So what happened, everybody was locked inside their house, right? And I live just outside of Fort Worth, just outside of Benbrook area, and one of my neighbors came to me and was like, "You still have like PA equipment and all that stuff?" Because I played music, and I'd kind of got back into it a little bit, and would go play like the barbecue joint or something in Midland, or play at church, things like that.
Just kind of play around,
yeah. but never really like getting back into it, recording music like I'm doing now, and so I was like, yeah, I've got that stuff, and so he's like, what do you think about doing like a backyard concert? Everybody is bored to tears, man. People need to do something other than watch Tiger King in their house. and so I was like, hey, yeah, that sounds fun. And we set everything up on the back porch, and some of my neighbors showed up, and if people wanted to be in their little family group, they could. We had enough room where we could space everybody out, and so we brought lawn chairs and coolers and had the PA set up, and my wife said, you know what? Everybody's even before the sequestered songwriters thing took off. It was like, hey, people are starting to do this streaming thing. Let's try to figure that out. And so we got that hooked up, and somehow hooked it up to my mixer, so the sound was actually pretty good. The video was terrible, but the sound was pretty good. And so we would stream it, and like my brother, he lives north of Houston, my hometown of Magnolia. I mean, they were sitting there hanging out. It's like, man, we're hanging out in the backyard, cooking a bag of crawfish, listening to your concert right now. It's like you're in the backyard right now.
That's awesome.
Like, that's cool, man.
That was one of the coolest things I think that came out of the pandemic was we all kind of shifted gears and did some other things, and that opportunity to bring your music into people's homes, I think created a whole lot of new fans for this music scene.
Oh, absolutely, and it was very cool. I mentioned the sequestered songwriters thing, but we were big fans of that.
Yeah,
and tuning in and getting to see like new artists. Like, hey, maybe I've never heard of these artists before, and now it's like, hey, man, when they come to town, I'm catching a show.
Yeah,
it's really cool. It was a really cool thing that Jason and Courtney put together.
It really was, and then for them to cover all these just bizarre artists a lot of times. And, I spoke to a lot of the artists, and they're like, I would never even think of covering one of these songs by who we're doing this week, but it made them expand and, made us as fans just love these artists even more. That was a really neat deal. So you take the break, you go back into the studio, you get this new album, Brand New Love Potion, and you have probably the biggest all-star Texas band ever on this thing. I think coming out of the pandemic was great because all these artists were like, I will play for anything. But like, man, the lineup you have on this thing is incredible.
Absolutely. I was blessed is the word for it. And I had an in with Pat Mansky from recording my first record, and he's the engineer over at the Zone down in Dripping Springs, and does a lot of work with Lloyd Maines. And Lloyd had played on a couple songs on my very first record I made when I was playing back in the college days. And so I was like, I want Lloyd Maines on here. That's number one priority. So I reached out to him. He said, yeah, I'll play on it. I'm kind of playing in my basement now. I've got a little studio set up where I can play on people's stuff. And so got with Pat, and he said, oh, yeah, no problem. We'll get Lloyd on here. And then it just kind of fell together. We were talking about, hey, who can we get to play, fiddle? And he was like, how about Brian Bacon? I was like Brian Bacon, like Robert O'Keefe band, Brian Bacon. He's like, yeah. I was like, absolutely, that's great. So
since we're wishing on stars here, why not?
I mean, it's not what it's who sometimes, right. And he knows a lot of people, and he's like, oh yeah,
well, Pat, yeah, he's like worked with everybody.
Exactly, and so it was really easy to just. He's like, yeah, let me call him. I'll see if they can do it. And then, oh yeah, let's do it. Let's go for it. So that's how it all came together. And I was just absolutely blown away by the.
I was going to say, like, the first time you hear the masters, is it just like, is this real life?
You get to hear it kind of as it's getting put together. And so but when you do hear it mastered, it's like, wow. I mean, it was good. The mix was great, but just hearing all the final product, you're like, wow, that's just the subtle differences and the things that come together, even after you've heard it, I don't know, 200 times.
Right, yeah. By the time you're sick of it, and then you hear the masters, and it's just your new baby all over again.
Yeah, it's such a great feeling.
So, Wesley, who would you consider like musical influences for you now? Like, we talked about you were kind of into the grunge stuff. You did some country stuff, in the early days. Like, what kind of bands and artists are you listening to now?
I don't ever turn off Mike and the Moon Pies. I mean, I think I listen to their whole catalog up and down.
Mm-hmm.
My kids know every word to every song, probably. We're going to see them tonight at Mag's. So,
Nice.
love those guys. I really love the honky-tonk sound.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in high school and learning how to play guitar, my stepdad introduced me to, like, Gary Stewart.
Yeah.
And guys like that, so really got into the honky-tonk stuff. And I used to, when I first started playing, like I said, I was into the grunge thing.
Right.
And then the Texas music scene was pretty rock heavy at the time, so we were pretty rock heavy. A lot of, like, really more of a rock and roll band.
Mm-hmm.
But just getting more into that classic country. Jesse Daniels, another one. He's out of California.
Yeah.
Just great sound. I love Summer Dean's music. She's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all these artists that are kind of playing more of that classic country sound, that honky tonk sound. I mean, that's my personal favorite, and so a lot of influence there. I'm loving some of these newer guys, like, Culture Wall just put a record out. He's great. I mean, of course, Tyler Childers and Sturgill and those guys just blew up, kind of came out of nowhere and just done what they have, and that's great. I mean, there's so many great artists, and of course we love a lot of the songwriters out here. We'll follow around Jason, Edie, Courtney, and Jamie Lynn and those guys. They're great, fun to listen to and fun to watch. So
you are a music fan.
That
that is
number
very
one.
Obvious right there.
Absolutely, we're probably go to as many shows as I play, if not more.
Those are my favorite artists, though, because just when you go to a show and you see another artist in the crowd watching and singing along, that is such a cool thing about this music scene. Like I said earlier, you guys are champions for each other. You're just all big fans of each other.
Absolutely, it's fun when you're at a festival and you catch one of them, and you see them out there trying to
Blend
be incognito.
Yeah, yeah.
You go over there and say something to them. They're like, "Don't blow my cover."
Right. They got the dark shades and the hat pulled down low.
Yep.
Well, you brought your guitar.
Yes, sir.
How about you do a song for us?
Sure.
That would be awesome. It's around behind the pole. We like to hide it for you.
Here.
Got Wesley Hanna hanging out with us on the Ranch Sitdown. Wesley, what song are you going to showcase here? This is your big moment in the spotlight.
No
pressure at all.
No pressure at all.
Tens and tens of people are watching right now.
Tens and tens, you know it. Tell you what, I'm going to do one I didn't get to mention earlier, but my wife recently picked back up the upright bass. And,
really?
Yeah, she
Fun.
started playing with me, and so we're doing a show tomorrow, not here in the stockyard. So
that's awesome.
I'm gonna make sure that's in tune.
Mm-hmm.
Got some Texas heat playing games with us here.
Yeah, it's hot outside. For you don't know, it's hot outside and cool inside the studio, so it messes with these guitars.
Big
Most
time.
of these guys and gals have to come in here and sit for a minute and listen to me ramble for 10 minutes while their guitars get, adjusted to the temperature change.
Absolutely.
See?
All right, I'm gonna do this one. This was on the new record. It's the third track, and it's one that I wrote for my wife. She played this song at her wedding and finally got around to recording it.
Oh.
She's from San Angelo, Texas. So this is a tune called Concho Pearl. Dust a rolling, water slow down in San Angelo, the place where you were born and raised. And the red dirt is dry under that West Texas sky. For you, baby, I'd fall like rain. My girl, like a west wind you whirl. It's amazing how I've seen you change. Like a grain of sand in the old Concho River to the pearl that you are today. You see the stars hung up high, oh baby, shine in your eyes. Every time you give me that look, and when I'm holding your hand down here in God's promised land, but it's safe to say I done been took. My girl, like a west wind you whirl. It's amazing how I've seen you change. Like a grain of sand in the old Concho River to the pearl that you are today. And girl, I'll never leave your side until they call me up high. When I'm gone from this big crazy world, you're still gonna be my Concho pearl. Yeah, my girl, like a west wind you whirl. It's amazing how I see you change. Like a grain of sand in the old Concho River to the pearl that you are today. To the pearl that you are.
It's such a good song. So, Wesley, if you could sit down and write a song with anybody on this planet, living or no longer even with us, who would you like to just sit down and write one song with?
Ooh, man, put me on the spot.
That's my whole goal. You want those tissues again?
You know, just thinking about it, I would. It'd have to be Robert Earl Keen, man.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Favorite songwriter.
Can you imagine? Just try to guess how many artists he has influenced, how many songwriters Robert Earl Keen. I mean, it's mind-boggling to try to think about that.
It is,
and he probably Robert Earl has no clue.
Yeah,
why would you listen to me?
Man, I've been listening to him since I was probably 12 years old.
Right?
You know, never.
Don't tell him that.
Yeah. His head will get real big.
No, he'll be like, I'm that old. Great, thanks.
Yeah, it's since the 90s, man.
Man, I would like to hear a song that the two of you guys wrote.
Oh man, I mean, he'd have to carry me, I'm sure. His songwriting. You know, you go dig into his catalog, and it's just crazy how just good he is, and I mean, obviously he was an English major and I was an engineer, and you can tell that if you compare our songs side by side.
Yeah, I would like to go into, there's got to be some room where he's got songs on file that he's never recorded, never released, he doesn't think is good enough.
Yeah.
I would like to just go through some of those one day.
Right. You could probably make, several records out of it, and they'd be like just hit records.
Right. Well, Wesley Hanna, so what's next for you?
So I've been writing some songs and getting ready for putting together the next record. And so songwriting I've found is kind of like a muscle, man. If you don't work it out, it's not going to work for you. So,
right.
So I took a long break for a while and really didn't write very many songs at all. Maybe one or two of those. A lot of the songs on Brand New Love Potion I'd written kind of before I took a break, and then and then maybe one or two of those came from in between time, and then three of them were from
let's go, we're going into the studio, yeah.
And so I've been kind of continuing that. It's been crazy to see how these songs are coming together, and that's how songwriting works for me. I usually am doing something mindless, like driving down the road somewhere or something, and I get an idea, and I'm like, oh man, I need to record that on my voice memo or something like that, and put that together. And so, been putting some of those together, and have a good group of those, and hopefully get 3 or 4 more, and then it'll be time to book some more time in the studio and get something going again.
Right. So it's very interesting to me to hear how each songwriter does it their own way. It's a really neat thing. Like, I've talked to songwriters where, like, Wednesday afternoon at noon, I write from noon to 6 p.m. And that's what I do. And I set that clock down. And then guys like you is like, just doing nothing. And all of a sudden it pops in your head. And like, I got to get it down now. It's very interesting how each of you can come up with something so creative in so many different ways.
It is. And I've listened to a few of these podcasts and different, podcasts in the Texas music scene. And same, like you said, it's just crazy here. And I'm like, man, how do they do that?
Right.
like me, it's like I've got to have an idea or something clever come up in my head, and I'll probably write most of the song right there and then come back to it and finish it up. And like, I don't know how, if I tried to sit down for 6 hours and write a song, I would probably accomplish nothing.
You'd be skimming through Netflix for 3 of the hours.
Yep, something like that. It wouldn't be pretty, whatever I came up with, I'm sure.
Well, that's interesting. Well, man, keep us apprised of what's going to happen with this next album. Can't wait to hear it. This album, though, Brand New Love Potion, is it is a Texas gem, man. It really is.
Man, thank you.
And like Wesley Hanna, it felt like you came out of nowhere, like the Tyler and the Sturgill. Like, there's this maturity to your songwriting, and it's just a lot of Texas pride, man. And you can't fake that. It's fantastic.
Yes, sir.
It is. Thank you for chatting with us today, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Shayne.
Best of luck, buddy.
Yes, sir.
This has been the Ranch Sit-Down. To hear more, check out our free app. Just search for 95.9 The Ranch or find it wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. New episodes every week.